I put it back on them. I put it back on them, and it was interesting because years ago when I first started teaching, I remember putting it in the students' hands and say, "Okay, I'm going to make up this test. What do you want that test to look like?" And so, or what do you want this assessment to look like? And a lot of times they would come up with these very thoughtful assessments, and so that's what I did. That's what I started to do with my students to say, what do you think you should be assessed on? What do you think that assessment should look like? What do you think the rubric should include? And so I've challenged myself and my students to come up with these very thoughtful assessments.
That's great.
Something that I tried new and failed was last year, and I tried to. It was with the 8th grade, and we were studying the civil rights movement, and I had them read a text, and I had never used it before, and I think that was kind of a low point for me because I didn't. How can I put this? I didn't do my homework as thorough as I should have, and so the end result was there was some engagement, but there was a lot of disengagement with that, and so I reflected on that, and I had my students reflect on that. Again, how can I make this better? How could this be a better experience? Excuse me. So that was definitely a low point because I thought, here's a topic that I could really run with, the civil rights movement. And again, thinking about connections, personal connections to that. But yeah, the end result was that it didn't go as planned. And so for this year, I've definitely have thought about it a little bit more. I've done a little bit more homework. In fact, I'm taking a class right now on the civil rights movement because I want to incorporate another framework in which to, have my students engage in conversations about the civil rights movement. So the good thing is that I learned from that experience, and I've grown from that experience. And I think this year, in fact, I know this year it will be a better experience for eighth graders. I thought about that question. I've worked in private schools, public charters, and so if I could change something about education, because unfortunately there's not an emphasis on that in our country. So little money is spent on education, and that still it boggles my mind why that is. So if I could change something about education, one, more money would be spent with education, and two, I'm a strong believer that because right now, I always tell my students that that students have a voice. And I don't think a lot of students understand the voice that they have, the power that they have. So if I could change something about education, giving the students more of a voice, that it's not so much teacher-centered, but it's more student-centered, project-based learning. We talk about 21st century skills, but I just don't see a lot of that happening across the board, whether it's private or public or charter. So if I could change something about education, just giving the students more of a voice, of a say in because that's what I try to do here, is really just kind of giving them an opportunity to voice and say, okay, what works, what didn't work, how can we change this, how can we improve it, what would you like to learn about, those types of things, as opposed to mandating these standards. I mean, there's some things that they have to learn, but I think you can never teach enough life skills, how to communicate with people, how to critically think for themselves. I don't think that's being emphasized enough. Studies have been done that project-based learning improves retention, student retention. Students are more engaged, and students remember. So that's something that I would definitely Well, first of all, I thank the board for giving me the opportunity to do this. I mean, we talk about voice. I mean, here's a perfect example of, you know, giving us as teachers a voice, and knowing what we're about and knowing what we're doing in our classrooms. And so I just want to thank you and the rest of the board for giving us that opportunity to do that, for listening to us. That's hard sometimes to do that. But if there's one thing, I just, you know, keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. And again, you know, I appreciate the opportunity to be here and speaking with you. And just keep doing what you're doing. I think this is a step in the right direction, definitely.